Hello and welcome to the Under Center podcast. I'm your host, Darren Meyer, and I am joined, as always, by the two hardest working men in NFL Irish podcasting scene. Any more adjectives or things I cannot describe? It's Jake Woolhead and Phil Malloy. Guys, how are you?
Absolutely living the dream. Thanks for that fabulous introduction. I feel very special. So keep bringing them on.
Yeah, doing great. I don't know. I think hardest working is maybe a little bit of an over compliment. It's hard to
Even
get all
working
three of
might
us on
be.
one show at the moment. So, but yeah, we're doing our best and we're trying to put out some at least average content. Hopefully, working our way up to good content.
Fionn, you are the master of the undersell. For sure. You are definitely the master of the undersell.
But that bar is low enough. All you have to do is step over. You don't even have to jump.
You want to oversell that thing so that you always can try and, work to reach that level,
Oh,
So
no, you always undersell. I'm with Fionn on that one.
If we
Under
oversell them,
promise,
people
over
will believe
deliver.
we actually reached that level before, not that we have constantly underachieving, well, we want to actually overachieve, I should say. But this is your week 10 recap show. What can you say? A crazy week in the NFL last weekend.
Quite
I
an
like the
unusual
term.
week.
Yeah, I like to use the term drunk that the NFL was last weekend with various blowouts, various surprises. Although I did have a pretty good week in predictions this week. Now, I can't say for sure, but I think we may have a new leader at the top of the prediction contest.
Did you have
Fionn,
that good of a week?
It was that bad of a week for Fionn.
Yeah, I missed them all pretty much this week. I did not have a great week. I might be having led it from week one. I might be on the bottom, I think, by this because Jake's not too far behind either. If
I
there's
was
like
one
a
behind.
six game swing, I could easily be on the bottom of the leaderboard by the time we get into week 11.
Jake was one game behind you, and I'm almost certain, I'd have to go back and check the scores, but I'm almost certain he did beat you this week. So Jake could be top of the leaderboard. I think for the first time as well.
Yeah, absolutely the first time. I had to get my act together because they certainly weren't going my way.
We put you in a big hole as well last season as well.
You did. You gave me the other Dara's picks, and I was already. And then not only did you do that, you said, "Oh, whoever loses has to buy the winner a jersey." I was like, "What? You put me in big of a hole?" At least you settled on going half and half. I suppose was probably the worst.
Well, yeah, it was going to be half and half, but I think didn't me and Fionn finish exactly even because he went for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and I went for the Bucks, and then of course the Bucks won, so that means that you had to buy us two jerseys, Jake, and we're still waiting on those two jerseys.
Yeah, we both.
And you will be continuously waiting for them.
Well, like I said, this is the Week 10 catch-up show. We are going to be talking about a few of the games. It is, of course, the return of the wheel of topics. We are going to be letting the wheel decide what we talk about. A good few things to talk about, of course, this week. Before we do get into it, of course, this show is brought to you by McGowan's of Phibsborough. Upstairs at McGowan's is the place to be for your NFL Sundays. McGowan's has everything you'll need, multiple screens to watch the games, and of course NFL Red Zone on their big projector, with of course some tasty pints and some tastier food. Drink deals including if a player scores in the main Sky Sports games, scores a touchdown, I should say, there is 2-for-1 drinks for the rest of that quarter. Now, lads, if you did pay attention to our socials last week, we had a bit of a nightmare with one of those games, especially. It was the Titans and Saints game, and guys were obviously trainers on the Saints and the Titans were paying attention to us because we originally had Alvin Kamara. He then went down and was out for the game. We then picked Julio Jones. He went down, pulled his hamstring on IR, out for 3 weeks. So then we went for AJ Brown, and you would think the way things are that he would score a touchdown. No.
Nothing.
It was peeved.
So we couldn't get anyone a free point, but look,
we didn't get anyone in the late game because we had Devontae Adams in the later game. Well, not we had Devontae Adams. Of course, the vote is up to you guys. We just put the options out there, but in that struggle of the game, you know, that 3-0 barnstormer there after 3 quarters in Lambeau, and Davante Adams wasn't one of those players to get into the end zone. So we're hoping maybe this coming week that we can have a bit better luck.
Hey, we're definitely hotter on this than we are on our betting show. So let's try and keep that rolling for now.
Yeah, that's why you've seen a hiatus on the betting show recently, because we just can't get around to recording it, because we just don't want to record us telling you which one
don't want
going
to embarrass ourselves anymore.
We'll just tweet it out, because you can always delete a tweet when the bets don't come true for you. But of course, we should always say, make sure you book your table for this coming Sunday at McGowan's. Now, obviously, there is a bit of question marks about what is going to be happening. Once we know more information, we will tell you, of course, with the current restrictions brought into place in regards to opening or closing times in pubs, restaurants and bars. So we will keep you up to date once we know any more. And of course, as always, thank you to McGowan's of Phibsborough for sponsoring the show. Also, make sure you follow us on our social channels, twitter.com/undercenterpod, or if you want to do the easier way and make it less complicated for yourself, go to Twitter and @undercenterpod. I don't know why I do the website. Instagram @undercenterpod. You can go to our Facebook, Undercenter Podcast, facebook.com/undercenterpod, and Undercenter Podcast for YouTube, I should say. That is where you'll get all our shows as they go out live. If you prefer to watch it there instead of here on Twitter. So with all the housekeeping out of the way, guys, I think it's time to go to the wheel of topics, maybe.
Oh baby,
let's do it.
Oh baby, let's do it is right. So let's have a quick look here. Let's just have a look, see what are we going to be talking about this week. I think we have about 7 topics here for you today. So let's have a look, see, and here it is, the wheel of topics. Woo! So let's just get straight into that wheel. Let's just spin it. Let's not even talk about some of the topics. Let's not even talk about some topics. And I think there's one there for Fionn that he wants to talk about.
Oh, no, we don't need to talk about that one.
The Packers give the middle finger to the Seahawks. Of course, we have to talk about this one.
I knew Fionn would be dying to talk about this one.
Again, I must state that I do not have any control over. I don't want to talk about this game, but that's what happens. The Packers beat the Seahawks 17-0. Russell Wilson throws for only 161 yards and 2 interceptions. His first shutout of his career since coming back from injury. Aaron Rodgers fared a little better, not only the 1 interception in his game. Both quarterbacks showed signs of rustiness after missing previous weeks. Fionn, you were sort of chomping at the bit a little bit to talk about this game, so I'll let you go first. What did you make of Seahawks and Packers at the weekend?
Yeah, well, I'll preface this by saying I didn't see much of the game itself, so I'm basing a lot of this on reports I've seen, Twitter reaction, and I think it's going to point towards my point anyway, because I'm not really interested in the game on the field. I think the Packers are a better football team than the Seahawks this season. It's very disappointing to get a goose egg, but what I really wanted to talk about is just to reaffirm, Dara, just to welcome you into the Bad Football Team Club with me and Jake, and try and get the Seahawks fans to start acting properly and respecting the process that is now involved with being a bad football team. What you guys don't realize is, yes, the officiating in the NFL does not always go your way. The problem is you've been a good football team for so long that even when you got these bad calls, you'd still win the game. And guess what? No one ever gives out about the refs if you win the game anyway. So I'm sorry, Seahawks fan, but you're going to have to suck it up. One time, a fumble is going to be called a fumble, even if it touched the ground. It is going to be called a drop pass, even if he definitely kept it off the ground. And I'm sorry, I don't want to listen to Pete, I'm 107 years of age, Carol, talk about the refereeing is a major reason we lost this game. Pete, you scored 0 points. 0. And you're the head coach. Russell Wilson has hit the cliff. I'm now fully onto that. Now it's a real cliff. It's not even a little step of a cliff. 100 and something yards and 2 interceptions and no points. That's a full-blown cliff. Cliff's a mower he's on now. Like UNESCO World Heritage cliffs. I'm all out on the Seahawks, and I just want you guys to just quit your whining, quit your whinging. Me and Jake, Do we ever complain about the refs, Jake? No, because
No.
the reality is, as bad as the refs played, when you're a bad football team, you always play worse than the refs play. So just suck it up, deal with it, and accept your fate for this season, I'm afraid, Dar.
I don't think there's, to be fair now, I don't think there is many Seahawks fans that had the same mindset as Pete Carroll saying that it was the referee's fault they lost that game on Sunday.
Well,
there was a person's fault who was, and it was Russell Wilson's fault that they lost that game on Sunday.
I don't know if you've seen that little clip of like Pete Carroll that looked to be throwing his flip phone on the ground out of anger.
I did.
He's got Alzheimer's. He accidentally called the defensive playbook on offense. That's why he didn't score any points.
And what about when DK Metcalf decided he would get ejected and then come back onto the field? For whatever reason, maybe this 6'5", 250-pound man can sneak onto the field and be all right with it. No, DK, you can't walk onto the field. You are a human giant. You can't do that.
To be fair, technically, and I was watching it in real time, obviously watching it live, and when the referees were giving out the penalties, and I think there was actually offsetting penalties for that DK Metcalf incident, I don't remember them saying at any stage that 14 was ejected from the game. They did say unsportsmanlike conduct and stuff, but I don't remember them ever actually saying he was ejected from the game. So
he was getting pretty feisty that game, though, wasn't he?
He was getting feisty because, well, look, we spoke about.
Well, you're losing.
And that was after the press conference. That's what he said. He was asked, "Well, why did you do what you did?" And he says, "I'm tired of losing." And that's the thing. He's not been used to losing this many games.
Well, get used
in
to
his
buddy.
Seahawks career. And I would start to imagine he's starting to get the OBJ sort of feeling there at the moment. Like, I am here.
He's better.
Throw me the ball. Why aren't you throwing me the ball? And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking at the moment. But it's kind of hard to throw him the ball when most teams are, he's in double coverage most of the time, or Russell Wilson takes forever to throw the ball and would rather throw it deep for Tyler Lockett to be picked off in double coverage. But hey, look,
well, what happened? As I mentioned, I didn't see the game, but I have the stats here in front of me. He had 8 targets. He only had 3 catches, though. Is that on him or was that on Russell? It can't all be on Russell.
Yeah, it can't all be on Russell. You're right, and there was a few passes that were thrown, and like I said, the Packers defense was fantastic that game. I know they're missing their best corner in Jair Alexander, but Eric Stokes and Savage and Amos, they were playing some really, really good football. Who was the other one? Rasul Douglas as well. Even Kevin King had a good game. So, or maybe it was just how bad the Seahawks were. But I just found it interesting as well, because it's following the same script as last year for the Seahawks, where their offense plays well at the start of the year and their defense is awful. Then they turn a corner midway through where the defense is good, but then their offense goes to shite. And it's happening again this year, where the defense have now turned the corner and the offense have gone to shite. Last season, it cost offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, I should say, his job. Shane Waldron is not impressing a lot of the fan base. I don't know what it is inside the building, but a lot of the fan base is not impressing. And I think that could be down to his history, because he came from the Rams, where they have all this motion and in their offense, and it's dynamic, and you just see what Stafford's been able to do there, and look what they were able to actually get out of Jared Goff in his time there, and it's not happening there at Seattle. So but he was not the offensive coordinator. He was the passing game coordinator. So it's totally obviously different. So
another storyline. Go on there. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's an air of negativity going on around there, like what you're saying about DK. The running back situation is a problem. They've not properly addressed that. They brought back Chris Carson, but they knew Chris Carson had injury trouble from his previous years at Seattle, and they never really got a good quality second running back there, because you've seen how most NFL teams do it now is you have 2 decent running backs. And now they've had to use Rashad Penny, who's not going to be there now, hopefully any longer after this year. And Alex Connells, who is serviceable, but he's not going to be a lead back for you anymore. So something's going to happen there. And there's going to be change in the off season. And I fear they're going to make the wrong change, and it's going to set back the organization a bit, because I think it's going to come down to Russ or P. And P has so much influence with ownership on that team that obviously he'd rather keep himself there and let Russ go, and that would be a mistake. I know, Fionn, you're saying he's running off a cliff, but if you give me Peter Russ, I'm keeping Russ.
Well, he might be falling off a cliff, but at this stage, Pete Carroll doesn't know whether he's in the Seahawks facility or an old folks home.
But if you can get 3 first-round picks for an aging Russell Wilson,
someone will give it. The Lions will give you 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, absolutely, you do it.
But you're talking about the Lions to give us 3 first-round picks, obviously including this year's. There's no decent quarterback in this year's one.
No.
We don't know about the next 2 years and if they're going to hit. Also, the next 2 years' first-round picks after that would be influenced by how good Russell Wilson does. So if Russell Wilson lifts that team to a mid position or a late teens, early 20s position, you may
know how it always goes. You know how it always goes. Everybody says there's no quarterback, and then come March or February, somebody's going to come up as a first round, the first overall pick. It always happens every single year.
Because they have to.
What about Tua?
And then the bad teams fall for it.
Tua was he not?
Would you take Tua?
No.
For this? No? Russ
2.0, basically. 3 firsts.
Not for 3 first rounders, but I think at this point it looks pretty clear the Dolphins would be willing to kind of ship him on for a bag of peanuts.
I did see a narrative of a mock trade that was done, and it was the Giants for 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and Daniel Jones. And I'd say I'll take the 3 firsts and 2 seconds, and you can keep Daniel Jones.
Well, okay. So you're saying there's no quarterbacks in the draft this year.
Yeah.
Of the quarterbacks that are in the league right now, let's call it reasonable. Like, right, you're not going to be able to trade for Patrick Mahomes. Okay. You could maybe you can argue to me you could get Aaron Rodgers if you really wanted him, but let's for the sake of argument, let's take him off the table.
Okay.
So, like, outside of the really, really top tier guys who aren't going to move, who would your preferred quarterback be of the guys in the league right now?
Well,
if it's a filler, if you had to fill for a year,
if it's a filler and it's, if you're getting rid of Russ, then you're saying basically you're going into a rebuild. You're going to try and blow everything up.
Let's say you're going to wait it out. You're going to get Bryce Young either. So you might have to have this quarterback a year, 2 years tops, depending on what he does.
I know exactly who you go for. David Blow from the Lions. He's probably the perfect person to take you for 2 years, and then you'll definitely get the first overall pick.
Mike White.
Mike White's a killer, man. Mike White is a killer. But anyway, honestly, we do have to get back to this game. The other story in the game is Aaron Jones is out about 3 weeks now.
3 weeks.
Sprain,
tough injury. And like I said, having a decent backup quarterback in AJ Dillon means that they're probably not really going to miss Aaron Jones now for the next couple of weeks.
I still think they will, though. I think there's a difference in the two of them, and it'll become more apparent.
There is a difference, but they'll still be enough for them to get through a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, if it was the rest of the season, then you would have your concerns. But if you need AJ Dillon to be the lead running back for 2-3 weeks, I could see worse options out there.
Yeah, but those 2-3 weeks are Vikings and Rams. And then the Bears, that's a gimme. But you got to get through the Vikings and the Rams. And I don't like the Vikings, but they've an annoying habit of being a very difficult team as they were this week. Yeah. I can see where Jake's coming from. But I always liked AJ Dillon. I think that'd be fine with AJ Dillon.
Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a drop off between the two.
Oh yeah, he's not Aaron Jones. That's for sure.
I did see a tweet that the Packers stocks went up for sale, like so you can own part of the team or whatever. And AJ Dillon bought one, and he just tweeted saying self-employed.
He's going to pick himself to be the lead back now because he's in charge. That's what it is. But look, listen, we'll get off to the Seahawks. This isn't a Seahawks podcast, and I don't want to like drown my sorrows on live on air, so I'll do that in the privacy of my own home. Thank you very much. So let's get the wheel of topics back up here, and let's see what we're going to be talking about next. Spinning the wheel, where we're going to land.
Oh.
Interesting.
Considering the week that's in it as well.
Is a new Patriots dynasty coming? Now, we asked that question, of course, because of the Patriots' 45-7 win over the Browns on Sunday in a surprising result, you could say. We would have thought more of the Browns, and maybe we didn't think the Patriots had 45 points in them. They covered the points by themselves. They didn't even need any points from the Browns. Mac Jones, 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not a lot there, but it was a running game that really proved decisive for the Patriots in the end. With I'm gonna get this right. Ramondre Stevenson. Is that how you pronounce this right?
Yeah.
Played very well. Came in for the injured Damian Harris and Brandon Bolden as well, playing quite well. So, what do you guys think? Is this going to be the worst possible scenario for all 31 other teams' fans that the Patriots are coming back?
My first thought when I seen that on the wheel, I said, my God, if there's another dynasty, Patriots dynasty, I might just go to a new American sport. I might go for the NHL or the NBA. I certainly couldn't deal with another 10 or 15 years of it. No, I don't know. I mean, Mac Jones looks good, man, but the 45-7 over the win is certainly over the Browns is certainly nice, but I don't know if it's convinced me that he's going to win the Super Bowl this year. He certainly looks probably the best rookie quarterback of the lot anyway at the moment.
I think it's too early to tell on dynasty, but my God, he suits the New England Patriots down to the ground. You don't want to call him a new Tom Brady. There probably won't be a next Tom Brady, but he allows Bill Belichick to just continue the same process that he's had. Get some nice under the radar running backs who are just going to bash you into the ground and are quite good on the check down run game or the check down pass game. Have a guy who knows exactly what he's doing at all times. Doesn't have to be a spectacular player, but puts the ball where it needs to be in the right passes just to get you down the field and just make the game feel out of touch for the opponent as soon as you get on the pitch. Like, the clock is already running too fast. You're already keeping the ball. You're already moving the ball. I think it's nearly more demoralizing not to be able to stop a drive of short plays than those big home run hitters we see in teams like the Rams and like the Chiefs. And that's Bill Belichick's way, and he doesn't have to get away from that at all. Mac Jones fits that role perfectly, and they've nailed it. I think in a lot of teams, they try and go for that young, splashy quarterback when systems they've had in the past with success never really needed those quarterbacks. And they suit, like in the Ravens, it suited perfectly to get a Lamar Jackson type player. But I think for the Patriots, Mac Jones was the perfect guy. He is developing in the perfect way. And Bill Belichick is only asking him to do what he's very good at doing. And that's a very good. I agree with Jake. I don't think he's going to win the Super Bowl this year or even in the next 3 years. But I can easily see him being a very successful New England Patriots quarterback for the next 10 or 15 seasons because he does exactly what they need him to do.
But it's nice. It's also another point that they had a really nice team built around him as well. So they gave him a nice offensive line that's probably in the upper tier of the offensive lines. Maybe out of 32 teams, the offensive line is 14th or something. I don't know. They gave him 2 nice tight ends who are good at blocking and can catch. I know Jonnu hasn't had the season that we all expect them to. And as you said, Fio, they got the running backs in. So that gives rookie quarterbacks the easiest job in the world. Is they get to do the handoff, they get to play action, and then they have the tight ends open somewhere along the way, and they're reliable. So you get that. It makes it a lot easier for them. And
Bill Belichick's way as well is like, hey, Mac Jones, you're not special. You're not bigger than this team. You're not the franchise. Look at Fields. As much as everyone wants to love or hate him, I don't think you can deny, though, he clearly has that drive to make a flash play, right? And that's going to work well for him. Sometimes it's going to work poorly for him. Mac Jones, now I haven't seen a lot of his games, but certainly from the stats and from any of the highlights I've seen, there is no impetus. His coaching staff is not telling him, go win this game, go show them what you can do. They're saying, Go do what you do really well and don't let up. Don't let the other team see a chink of daylight and just drive and drive and drive the same way the Patriots always have.
Yeah. We have a comment in here from On Farrell saying #Niner Nation. A very good win for them actually last night. They actually won a game at home finally, and it had to be, of course, against the Rams. And of course, he just comes back in here, beat the Rams. He definitely did beat the Rams, and it was actually a fantastic performance. The Rams actually looked like the Detroit Lions a little bit there last night with Matt Stafford under center. But going back to the Patriots, and actually I want to flip over to the other side of that game and to the Brown side of things, because Baker struggled in that game. He obviously had to go out in the third quarter with an injury, and Case Keenum came in. But I want to ask you this, and it was a note that I took down, Jordan. Like, do you think Baker is hurting his contract chances more now by refusing to sit out and go on IR for 3 weeks to rest his shoulder? I think that's, if he sat down and missed the 3 games, and maybe if Case Keenum came in and he struggled, it would have raised Baker's price a little bit, or at least kept it at that high level that he's expecting. But I think he's done himself not just obviously damage to his shoulder, but damage possibly to his bag in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I kind of see where you're coming from, but also he played quite well the week before on the same torn labrum, I think it is, in his shoulder, in his non-throwing shoulder. So I don't know. Does it really make a difference? He obviously laid a horrible goose egg this game, but he was down a few players that obviously made a difference for him. So do I think it's affecting his bag? I don't think so. Do I think he's the best quarterback in the world? Definitely not. But he's going to get paid regardless. He's going to be the Browns quarterback.
Well, I think that's what he's a little bit worried about, Jake. Like you said, he has not been a bad quarterback at all. And the Browns, I think, have this headache that every team gets when you've been bad for so long. And Washington's going to get it on the next reasonably average quarterback that we get. You go, oh, God, we had so many bad quarterbacks in a row. Do we want to keep a definitely average one, or do we want to go and find a good one? And I think the Browns are stuck, and I think Baker Mayfield knows that, right? He's had some success. He's definitely, I think you could argue, turned that franchise around with the help of the running game. But has he done enough to warrant that you are 100% going to be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns and get that long-term, right, that 5-year, 6-year contract? I don't think so. And I think right now he's trying to show... He's trying to run into his brand a little bit and say, I'm the tough guy, right? I'm the gunslinger. I'm going to hang in there. And that's what you're getting. You might not get this superstar guaranteed Super Bowl quarterback, but you are going to get is a quarterback who doesn't miss a snap, doesn't come out of the game, carries the mentality that you want. And I think he's hoping that makes up for what is, in the end of the day, quite an average record that he's got as a starting quarterback. So
the Browns are going to pay him. I don't know. They're just going to pay him.
You see, I've heard whispers that they're actually not, that they're absolutely undecided. And I don't know if they are going to pay him. If they do pay him, how long they're going to pay him for. If it's a year or two, that doesn't bode well. That's still essentially just well, you're better than the free agent market. I'm going to hang on to you until something better comes along.
Yeah, but what are they going to do? They can't go back into this QB hell that they've been in for so long. You might as well extend them. No, they might do a bit of the salary cap creative accounting and give him a 6-year contract, but the last 3 years avoidable years or something along the lines of that, so they can spread out his costs. But he's obviously not going to get that $500 million Patrick Mahomes contract, but he's certainly going to be in the upper end of the starters. He's going to reset the second QB market because no one is really getting that Patrick Mahomes contract again.
No, maybe Lamar, but that's a different one. But no, I don't know. I think he might. Yeah, I don't know with Baker. And look, you're saying you don't want to go back into that QB market again with the Browns, and I think they're probably as well placed to go back into it as they've ever been. They've got a decent offensive set up around any prospective quarterback that comes in. They've got some decent running backs. They've got a really good offensive line. They've got some good receivers. They've got a good tight end in Austin Hooper and David Njoku. So, if they're not certain on Baker, this is the best time to actually step off of him.
Here's what I see can potentially happen. The Browns extend Baker, give him, say, 3 or 4 year contract. And then they trade Baker. They do a Matt Stafford, Jared Goff deal. They trade him for a veteran quarterback who's quite good because if they see they have a Super Bowl contending team and they have quite a good roster offensively and defensively. And if they think they're only missing that quarterback, they may extend them, trade them, similar to the Jared Goff. Now, you're obviously not having to trade away a first-round pick with Baker Mayfield, but you get yourself a veteran quarterback, and you think that adds up so that you can get to the Super Bowl if you think Baker can't do it. But I certainly think they're not letting him go. Well, they're not going to fight him, but
the same question poses itself that we asked about the Seahawks earlier. Who is that quarterback? This is essentially the same question. Seahawks are sliding a little bit, and if we're saying it's Russ or Pete, and one of them has to go, they're going to try and get that little bounce back up in terms of a veteran quarterback. Same way the Browns, they've on an upward trajectory. They're going to want to keep that going, and like you said, get a veteran quarterback in. I don't see who that is. It's not Matty Ice. It's not like Tannehill.
No, I'm only seeing, say, in this scenario, like an Aaron Rodgers can go there. He finished his career as a Brown because they have a strong contending roster, good play calling for the most part, good defense, and he can get them there. He could be the difference maker. So that's what I'm seeing in this scenario where I don't think they're getting rid of him. I think they're going to pay him and they're going to be stuck with him for the next 4 years. We know he's an average to above average quarterback, but he's not going to be the difference maker for you.
I agree with that.
Josh Rosen.
Is he even on a roster now? I don't know.
He was. He was playing at the weekend. They pulled the Falcons pulled Matt Ryan in the blowout against the Cowboys. Josh Rosen came in.
Yeah,
and on his first throw, he threw an interception. I bet those 9 teams that made the biggest mistakes of their lives are really quaking in their boots right now about Josh Rosen. But it's just I don't know. I think it's an interesting one with the Browns that like if they're in. I think like you were. I don't necessarily agree with what you were saying in terms of Baker may have the power in this situation. I think that the Browns do, because like I said, I think the Browns have the best setup there. They've got a really good head coach. They've got a good offensive setup. I think if you can get any decent serviceable quarterback in there, I'll just throw a name out there, and I don't know if he will come back to the team that he's with at the moment because it's only a 1-year deal. Jameis Winston.
You think Jameis Winston is better than Baker Mayfield in this scenario?
Jameis Winston in that Brown side could do very well because he's not asked to do a lot.
I think the only reason you're going to go for Jameis over Baker is if there's a horrendous difference in the contract size.
There would be a horrendous difference in the contract size.
Well, what about if you're going for a budget, vaguely acceptable quarterback? What about Sam Darnold? Get him in. Let him rely on the run game. Forget about him for like 60 plays a game and just ask him to throw the ball like 20 times a game. He can do that.
Sam Darnold is
David Blow.
That's it.
David Blow.
But it's interesting. It is interesting. And look, the Browns are 5-5. And look, if you were to ask them a couple of years ago, listen, are you all right going 5-5 in the season? They would take your arm off. So, let's not forget where we were, people, a couple of years ago, if there's any Browns fans that are kind of upset with things at the moment. But let's go back to the wheel. We have a couple of minutes left, so I say we have one more topic in, and we might do a dealer's choice if we
I know
if we have time.
What you're basically saying now is if we don't get the Washington football team one, we will do it afterwards.
Well, look, we all get one because look, it's I got one there a couple of weeks ago with the Seahawks. Jake, you can have one if the Giants beat the Bucs next week. All right.
The Giants ever do anything? Okay.
Anyway, the topic we're going to speak about next is jetting their way to the number 1 pick because the Jets are in a really weird position, and apart from the fact that I am never betting on them ever again, they went down 45-17 to the Buffalo Bills. Mike White, I had the hot take that he'll win more games than Zach Wilson. He obviously was listening to me and got overconfident because he threw 4 interceptions and was pulled from the game, letting Joe Flacco in towards the end when he scored himself a touchdown.
You know it's bad when you're getting replaced for Joe Flacco this year.
Very bad. Very bad. 175 points conceded in the last 4 games is a very concerning number for the Jets. I know we're still in the early days of the Robert Saleh reign, but maybe he's just realized there's a lot more work to be done to make this team not even competitive, just relevant in the next coming years. What are you guys thinking?
I mean, you mentioned the amount of points they conceded over the past 4 games. Obviously, the Jets are bad. It's even worse looking when you say we've hired a defensive head coach and your defense is bad. But you do also have to give them the fact that I think four players have been ruled out of the season with torn ACLs or what other season-ending injuries, and they were top quality players that were out. I can't think of any names off the top of my head now, but I know they had some really good players that were missing, and you can't always replace top quality players with top quality players in the middle of the season. Now the offense, I mean, that's a whole different story. They added to that offense. They had a new offensive line. They have a nice running back in Michael Carter, and then they added Corey Davis, and they have Denzel Mims and Elijah Moore, I want to say, the rookie wide receiver. Yeah. I mean, that was like, yeah, we'll add all these players, and yet it's still sputtering. It's like a car that's missing spark plugs. I don't know what it is, whether it's the play calling or is it still the coaching? I don't know, but man, that just does not look good. It didn't look good with Mike White in this game. It didn't look good with Zach Wilson a few weeks ago. I don't know what the solution is here.
I think their big problem is that they're not going to get the number 1 pick, even being this bad. And the reason is there's 3 even worse teams in the way of the number 1 pick. Number 1 being the Lions, who did somehow manage to tie with the pretty toothless Steelers. But then Mason Rudolph is missing quite a lot of his brain after Myles Garrett bashed it out of it. So that's probably unsurprising. But I mean, there's a lot of bad teams in the way. The Lions do not have a very easy record or a very easy schedule to end the season. The Texans are also really bad. They play the Jets in 2 weeks. So that might decide where the number 1 pick is going in that game. And then even worse than that, the Jaguars as well, who also play, I believe, the Texans between now and the end of the season. So there's a lot of really bad teams who are going to be playing each other between now and the end of the season, and depending on what way that breaks, the unfortunate Jets could find themselves barely picking inside the top 5, which would not be good. Of course,
here's what I'll say though: the Jets, they're not going to go for a quarterback, so they don't need to be first or second. They will really be fighting with probably the Jaguars for the 3rd or 4th spot, probably at this stage. So that means they're going to be fighting over probably the top tackle or top defensive lineman. They're going to be fighting over it. They're not going to be out. They don't need to be first or second. They just need to be 3rd or 4th.
Well, there's a lot of very good players that will be going onto the free agent market this coming off season. If you're the Jets ownership, do you go and pay over the odds to get some of these players?
No, I don't think you ever go over the odds to get these players in free agency. You try and lure.
How do you improve your team then?
Piece by piece. I think you're just going to lose your money if you try and jump it all together, because you have to have a plan. You can't just go out there and see the names up in lights. We've seen it with quarterbacks. We've seen it with wide receivers that it doesn't fit the right style of offense or defense, which, I mean, the Jets have to fix both. But I think for me, it's about going about it in a manner where you can put together a stable core and slowly add a big name year on year that fits in what you're trying to do, then go out and try and sign 4 or 5 big names for big money, because then you're hindering yourself even further down there. You're just prolonging it. I'd much rather take a slightly more conservative approach in terms of building up the team.
Let me throw this name down out at you, because This is a type of landing spot the Jets would be for this player if he wants the money that he wants, and that's Davante Adams. He wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. To do that, a team with a quarterback on their rookie contract is the only realistic prospect that he can go to. If you're the Jets, and of course you're one of those teams, do you go to Adams and say, we will make you the highest paid wide receiver to play with Zach Wilson?
I don't know. I feel like they're not just missing a top wide receiver. Like there's a whole lot more problems in.
Oh, I understand, but this is an example of just like one of the star players that would be available in free agency, that regardless of position. You know,
I think you build the core of your team through the draft, and you supplement it with depth picks through veteran free agency. We've seen teams spend all the money. We actually, in fact, seen the Jets spend all the money on Le'Veon Bell a few years ago, and that obviously has not panned out very well for them. So if you don't have the right players behind them, there's no point having that star player if you don't have anyone around them to take the attention a little bit away, because being the sole focus of an offense as a wide receiver just means you're going to get double teamed, and that's just not a whole lot of points.
And like you said, Dara, even if you want to get, I think you physically as the Jets can't sign a lot of splashy free agents, because the amount you have to, as you mentioned, you have to overpay, but the amount you have to overpay to overcome any kind of other relevant offer from any relevant team, especially for the likes of Davante Adams, if you have to convince them to go and take the money over really any chance of winning, the more of those you have to do, the less of them you can do. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you can't live up to the promises of that guy. He's going to want to move on. You're still going to have to owe him the money and dead cap hit. And so I think it's much better if you can convince a few veteran guys, try and hit that even second, third tier free agent and say, hey, look, you might not win now, but we could definitely overpay you and you can definitely get a lot of game time. I think that's going to help to grow the team more than get a few splashy guys in that then in the end don't gel together and just end up costing your team in the long run.
A few more, Niners fans we have here.
A lot of Niners fans today.
Sorry, we can't. Doesn't look like we get a chance to speak about the Niners in depth, but like again, fantastic victory.
Tell you what, you win one game and they're all over the place. You're only 4-5. Calm down. #Niner Nation.
Jake, what about what Fionn was just discussing there with the Jets and free agency and stuff like that? What are your thoughts?
I wasn't listening. No,
neither was I. That's why I went to you.
No, I think me and Fionn probably kind of agree on this way of building your team is if you could spend all your salary cap on one giant star player and kind of hamstring your team then, but you could then instead sign maybe 4 to 5 high quality depth pieces that are starters, or just maybe not the top starters, but they're certainly going to affect your team overall, because if they gel together and then there's loads of them and they're all like better than the rookies that you can pick up or whatever back end roster people that you have, that's probably the better way of doing it, because we've seen teams that spend all their money and they're not ready to have a wide receiver or a running back or whoever. And then you just hamstring your team and that player doesn't even want to really be there, because now you're going to start losing games and they don't want to lose games. No one does.
It's classic false economy. Does one excellent player really make your team better, or does 3 upgrade players at 3 different positions make your team better?
Maybe make it easier for yourself. Imagine you're thinking about retooling your offensive line and the best tackle in the market comes up, but that just means you have 4 shitty starters on the rest of your line. Would you rather have 3 or 4 quality pieces instead of 1 star piece on your offensive line? You would obviously rather the 3 or 4 quality pieces. You can't always run through your left tackle or just pass in that direction.
Well, it's a fair point and very well made, lads. It's just me getting to play devil's advocate a bit too. Just because I think
devil's avocado.
But look, we're going to move on from the Jets. I think we've talked about enough during the week. I think we're going to have to bar them from the wheel of topics now too, until they start doing something. Like the Lions, they're barred from talking about until they actually do something. We have a bit of time left. Fionn, I'm going to open the I'm going to open things to you because we're going to talk a little bit about Washington, of course, beating Tampa Bay Buccaneers 29-19 in revenge for their playoff loss last year. I should also welcome the Washington football team defense to the 2021 season. It's great to see you. You're a couple of weeks late, but of course, anything good has to be accompanied by something bad because unfortunately, Chase Young tore his ACL and he's done for the year, which is obviously a brutal blow, especially with the fact that Montez Sweat just went down the previous week as well he's not done for the season, but for a couple of weeks at least. So that defensive line is taking a bit of a battering. But Fionn, give us your thoughts about Sunday.
Yeah, obviously, like you said, big loss in terms of getting Chase Young out for the season, but a big win for the Washington football team. I think it's kind of classic Washington. When I was watching the game, I was expecting it. After the first half, we played so well. I said, oh, well, that's it. We don't do 2 quarters of good football. And in fairness, we started off the second half, I beg your pardon, 2 halves of good football. And we started off the second half looking exactly on that trend where we gave up the big touchdown, miscommunication, classic for the Washington football defense. But no, we managed to stick it out. And I think I wanted to put on the board that the Washington football team were going to win the NFC East. And that was a bit of a, I don't know, a false promise. I don't think that's necessarily realistic. Number one, unfortunately, Dallas are too far ahead and they've too easy a schedule to finish the year for us to catch them. But I do want to give Washington credit only briefly. I don't believe that we're a good football team yet, and I don't want us to waste too much of our breath. But I would like to give us a little bit of credit on the offense. We are doing this with our backup quarterback. Everyone kind of forgets that because he's played so much. And we have seen him week on week improve in little areas that are making him a little bit more competitive in games. He is no longer living on his wits. We went really completely flat and short as an offense over the last couple of weeks, looking at checkdowns, shallow, nothing really over 20 yards. He slowly extended himself this Sunday. That showed a couple of bigger plays, a couple of important first down plays. And that's it. It's about him learning. He doesn't have to do that every time, but he also can't do it never. He has to balance that out slowly. And I think, look, weirdly, Tampa Bay was the perfect team for us in that we do well when the quarterback has to stay in the pocket. And Tom Brady was never going to threaten us outside the pocket. We have enough talent on that defensive line to put him under pressure. We did have Jackson back at cornerback. That was always going to add a little bit more jeopardy when they were throwing the ball. And we're fast in the linebacker. Cole Holcomb makes a lot of good tackles for us. But by no means are we a top-tier defense. I'm not going to say that. And we're not a top-tier offense. But my God, how good do McLaurin and Gibson look? They are, I would say, by far our 2 best players this season on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. The 2 of them look great. They're definitely good pieces to build around. And I mean, I got to be honest with you. Washington would be a scary team if they had a good quarterback. I mean, like say, for instance, it's frustrating as a Giants fan to watch the offense of Washington run so well with a backup quarterback when Jason Garrett's play calling is getting us 2-yard flats every time, and on third down we're thrown before the sticks. There's just no point in it. It's so frustrating to watch that kind of game when you know in a different type of game plan that Sioux having, I mean, they're probably similar enough rosters, really, if you kind of look it down to it. The coaching just comes down terribly bad. Now, you are right, they're not going to win the NFC East. Unfortunately, for both of us, Dallas looks a bit too strong this year for either of us to catch up with them. It's not out of the question that a wild card spot is there. Anyway, the team looked like they could do it. Now, would they get far? It's kind of similar to last year or the year before. There's no point in getting there because you're going to then be picking up 15 or 20 in the draft, and then you're not going to get whoever you want anyway. So
yeah. Before I talk about the game, Fionn, Owen wants to know, what would you like the football team to be called?
You know what? I'm one of the weirdos. Obviously, being in Europe, like, I kind of like the Washington football team. It's a little bit different. It annoys Jake. That's always important when your enemies don't like your name. I'm pretty happy. I don't like the Red Tails. I don't like when you see the process, everything feels so manufactured. Even these new teams like the Jaguars, when you're our age, the league has been what it's been pretty much since we ever even heard of American football. So, sure, I like the historical names, but when you see the process of picking a name, I don't know. It seems kind of artificial and commercial. We fell on Washington football team. I say keep Washington football team. I kind of like it.
Yeah, no, I like the Wolves.
I like
the Wolves is not the worst, but
the Wolves.
It's not really like it doesn't have a whole lot of connection to Washington DC.
Is there not a native wolf, the red wolf? Is that not what the whole point of it was?
No, I think
native
that was just
Washington?
let's call it wolf, and our color scheme is red. So it was like red tails, red wolves, red robins, red everything, whatever you want to call it.
The red tail was in homage to the fighter pilots, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was, but it was a convenient homage. Let's put it like that. It was
fair, yeah.
There was a lot of red tagged names, not just the red tails.
Okay, that's fair. I like the Wolves, but I think there was one going around called the Timberwolves or something like that. But that would obviously clash with the NBA side, and I don't like teams having the same one from
Timberwolves is a shite name.
It is, and they're a shite team in the NBA as well. So it kind of goes together. But it was a good win for Washington. It was good to see, them have a decent win, and we kind of all backed. I think everyone really backed the Bucks to sort of beat them in this game. But Brady struggled. His favorite guys weren't out there. He doesn't seem to want to throw to Chris Godwin anymore. He with Gronk and Antonio Brown missing, he couldn't really get the ball to Evans much either. Obviously, he had that 40-yard touchdown. Where Evans beautifully got away from the cornerback who was it covering.
It was a complete foul and offensive pass interference and pushing off. But aside from that, yeah, fantastic move.
You don't need to be salty about it.
Fionn, I don't blame the referees, Malloy.
I didn't blame the referee. I blame Mike Evans for being a dirty football player who doesn't respect the rules.
Oh, good.
No, in fairness, it was once again a bad switch over and the safety was late getting over. I think he was kind of the corner was supposed to be playing trail technique and the safety over the top, and neither of them did both of those things. So that led to a pretty easy 40-yard touchdown. I don't know how many of them I've had to look at. And sorry for cutting you off, Dara, but yeah, I think for the likes of you and Jake, actually for once a decent game of football. Every time I've been watching Washington, it doesn't feel like the other teams. There never felt like there was any threat or any confidence. And okay, I was definitely nervous, especially the second half because of our history. But that first half, it was a genuinely good football game. Yeah, Tom Brady, who didn't have all his weapons, it wasn't on fire, but it also wasn't complete because he was bad. We were actually kind of competitive, making it difficult. And like you remember, if you think back to the Atlanta game, that's the thing I missed the most. Just make it difficult. I don't mind if you lose. Make it look hard to do. Like it's not you came in with a game plan. You didn't even have to change it. It worked to perfection. We were exactly what we are on tape, and you can kind of work your way around it. But I that's what I liked the most. It was genuinely a good game of football, and the Buccaneers had to work really hard for every point that they got. And luckily, we had enough to hold on at the end.
Yeah, and I must say, it was a beautiful drive at the end of the game. 10 minutes, 19 plays to totally take the game away from the Bucs. The touchdown topped it off, but what was the cherry on top of it was they go for the 2 points and they take the knee so that nothing bad could happen. That was genius. So great win for Washington. They play Carolina next week. Let's see if they can make it 2 wins from
nice
2
win there for you. That's a nice win there for Washington.
Yeah, well, that's Rain's. That's Rain's team, my brother's team. So
Cam back there, I don't know.
Oh man, I hope we flatten Cam. Take this win right out of his sails.
The minute I seen Cam, the minute I seen Cam active for that game, I was like, yeah, I'm going out to Paddy Power. I'm gonna see if he anytime touchdown. It wouldn't give me any odds for him.
Oh no,
human.
You would have got nearly 2.
Yeah, I know.
Hey man, how dangerous is Christian McCaffrey while we're on Like the man is 85% and he just like runs around the edge of a defense like they weren't even there.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Like he gets 10 yards every time he touches the ball.
I think he pulled a hamstring or something as well. There was one point I seen him stretching his hamstring on the field, and then the next thing I seen him run 20 yards or something.
That's it with him. The injuries are starting to pile up a little bit, but you're willing to live with that just for what he can do when he's on the field.
Because like he made
us believe that Sam Darnold was going to be like this great quarterback leading the Panthers to the playoffs until he went down, and then we realized Sam Darnold was Sam Darnold. But it's just unbelievable. I think that'll be tough now to see Washington try and cover him at the weekend. To see if anyone can cover him at the weekend, because the Cardinals definitely couldn't either. But I think that's a perfect place to wrap up the show today. Before we let you go, make sure you're following us on our social channels at UnderCenterPod on both Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/UnderCenterPod on Facebook, Undercenter Podcast on YouTube. Make sure you're keeping an eye on our Thursday night preview on of course Thursday. Of course it's the Patriots traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. We have some fantastic guests coming up. We will announce them in a little bit, probably tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned to our social channels for that too. Fiona and Jake, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And like I said, we'll be back Thursday for our Thursday Night Football preview show, but until then, stay safe, and we will of course